Christmas is almost here and whiskey is fantastic at this time of year, whether it's because you just had a massive meal and you couldn't possibly fit in a dessert, but you still want something sweet, or you've had a long day and you want to unwind with something strong and full of flavor. Whiskey is always going to be a good choice. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and today I'm going to lay out 5 picks for great little whiskies to have at this time of year, whether it's something classic, something sweet, something smoky, something strong, or just something simple. I've got you covered. So let's not waste any time and let's get right into our first whiskey, the classic, the Redbreast 12. For me, this is a wonderful little Irish whiskey. It is only coming in at 40% ABV, but it has so much flavor. It is a single pot still Irish whiskey, so it has this really nice, rich, peppery flavor to it, but it's been aged in bourbon casks and sherry casks, Oloroso sherry casks. You get this really nice, rich vanilla, caramel, butterscotch base, and then these really nice fruity notes, all with that lovely peppery pot still spice. So despite it being at 40%, really nice and full of flavor. Like the nose, it is dried fruits, it's figs, it's sugar, it's brown sugar, it's caramel. There's a bit of nuttiness in there. For me, this is pretty much the epitome of Christmas in a glass, because it is so nice and so full of flavor, but it has all those kind of spicy notes, the dried fruit notes, and just is really enjoyable. When you take a sip of it, it's not hot, it's not burning, it doesn't kind of challenge you too much, but it does deliver flavor. It has this really nice, rich, mouth-coating texture. It's got a bit of oaky spice to it there. Like I said, that bit of like peppery spice, and it's just full of flavor. It's really enjoyable. Comes in at 12 years old, so has a nice bit of maturity to it. There's no like sharp edges, there's no harsh edges to it. I won't say, well, it is smooth. I know people don't like using the word smooth, but if you could describe a whiskey as smooth, this will be one, because it's really nice, really rounded, really full of flavor, and for me, it is a classic Christmas whiskey. But what if you're looking for something a bit sweeter? What if you're looking for something that is a bit more like a dessert of a whiskey? Well, that's what this here is. This here is the Liberator. This is from the Wayward Irish Whiskey Company down in Cork, I think they are. Or Kerry, I think. This is actually a really nice whiskey. It is a malt whiskey that's been finished off in port casks, so tawny port. It is really nice. I won't pour myself another glass because I've got that really nice Redbreast, but you can see I've gone through a lot of this. It has a really nice, rich, malty, biscuity flavor to it, but because of a port finish. I always love a port finish, especially this time of year, because it gives you these ripe red berries, these juicy red berries, but it's not all sweetness. There's a bit of like cocoa powder in there. There's a little bit of that like darker earthy notes in there that keeps it nice and balanced, but keeps it all in that sweet. It's not like super sharp. It's not just red berries. It's not just one note. You got a couple of different layers of those different sweetness in there combined with the biscuity malt. A port finish whiskey is a fantastic little choice. This comes in at 46% ABV, so it's a little higher than the Redbreast, but it doesn't mean it's super strong. It doesn't have that burn to it. 46% is, to me, I think, a very nice flavor for a nice alcohol percentage for a whiskey, where you get a nice bit of weight, you get a nice bit of like flavor to the whiskey without it going super strong. So it's not going to really burn your palate out. You're not going to be super challenged by it, but it's still going to be something you can really enjoy. But what if you do want something strong? What if you want something with a lot of punch, with a lot of flavor? Well, for me, Barrel is very great. This is the Barrel Dovetail Bourbon. Now, this is actually one I forgot about for a while. So we're heading into Christmas now. I was at an event, and recently enough, a whiskey event, and someone asked me, are there any good bourbons you think about that are like nice and strong, that are a bit different? And I said, well, Barrel, actually. I haven't actually talked about this one for a while. I really like Barrel. What they do is they source bourbons and they finish them. So this here was finished in rum, port, and Dun Vineyards Cabernet wine barrel. So it is not technically a bourbon anymore, but it still has all that lovely, it really has that nice bourbon base to it, and it has a lot of flavor. It comes in at 62.35% alcohol by volume, so it is really strong, but because it's got that rum, because it's got that port, again, that port finish, because it's got that the red wine barrel finish in there, it has a lot of extra flavor. That means it's not just that one high alcohol bourbon note. You got a bit of the sweetness from the rum, the kind of the berries and stuff like I was mentioning with the port, and a bit more red berries with those Dun Vineyard Cabernet wine barrels. Really, really nice. This is something that you definitely sip on. You enjoy it slowly. Whereas these two are ones that you can pour yourself a glass like this Redbreast, and it's very, very nice. It's not going to challenge it. This here does challenge it. So it is something that you would sip and savor. I wouldn't have this like before a meal because it's gonna really dry out your palate. It's gonna have a lot of like flavor in there. This is something I'd have at the end of a meal. These two here, you could have them kind of with some snacks. You could have them with a little bit of food pairings. You could have them even with a meal. This here definitely at the end of a meal, maybe instead of a dessert, maybe at the end after you've finished eating everything, you have a little bit of this because it is so full flavored. It does kind of dominate everything you're having, but sometimes you really want that, and if you're looking for a strong whiskey, this is a really great choice. Barrel Dovetail. But maybe you want something that's strong in a different way. It's got a very strong flavor, but it's not strong in alcohol. Well, sometimes you want a smoky whiskey, and this here is my choice for a smoky whiskey. This is the Teeling Black Pits single malt Irish whiskey, and it is a peated single malt. So this is really nice. For me, I know some people kind of, they can get divided on this whiskey because A, it's peated, it's a peated Irish single malt, and not everyone who likes Irish whiskey is going to be a fan of peated single malt whiskey from Ireland, but this here is nice. It has a fair bit of peat in it, but because they triple distill it, that kind of reduces the punch of the peat. You get all that flavor of the peat, but you don't get those kind of medicinal, band-aid, kind of rubbery notes you get in some really peated whiskies. It actually tames it back, so you get just like the flavor of the peat without that like punch of the peat. It also has a really nice flavor to it because it was finished in, I think, Sauternes wine barrels. Yeah, Sauternes wine barrels. So you get this really rich fruitiness, and to me, it actually tastes like of a grilled pineapple. So it has this really nice, like imagine you took a piece of pineapple, you put it in the barbecue over some charcoals, and it gets this smokiness into it, but it's still at the core quite sweet. So for me, this is a really great smoky whiskey. It comes in at 46% ABV, yeah, 46%. So again, like the Liberator, has a bit of extra punch, has a bit of extra weight without being super strong. I have tried the cask strength version of this, and it has way more flavor, way more peat, but is that bit harder to find, and it is that bit, I guess, harder to enjoy because this here, you can have a really nice, you can have a glass of it. This here actually pairs pretty well with food. So if you have some nuts, some cheese, a bit of meat, this here goes really well with it because it has that peaty smoke, which can add a contrast to those other flavors you're having. So it's a very nice little whiskey. Very, very full flavor though, and very, very enjoyable. Before I give my final pick, which is going to be like a simple whiskey, let me know down in the comments below, what is your whiskey of choice at Christmas? Or do you have different ones that you might have before a meal, during a meal, or after a meal? Either way, let me know down in the comments below, because we're going to go on to my final pick, and it's going to be something simple. This here is Jack Ryan. This is actually, I haven't reviewed it yet on the channel. This is their single grain Irish whiskey. It's very, very simple. I mean, it's very, very enjoyable though. So single grain whiskey is often overlooked because it's kind of a basic style. It comes in at 40%, so it's again down at the low end of like where whiskey is allowed to be, and it's actually not super expensive. But that said, I do enjoy it. It was matured in virgin oak casks before being finished in red wine casks, and I think it says, yeah, Californian Pinot Noir casks. So you get that nice bit of a wine finish to it. You get that nice virgin oak finish. So it's almost like a bourbon because it's a grain whiskey. So it's a corn whiskey, corn based, it'll be mostly corn with in virgin oak. So it's going to be essentially like a bourbon that's not made in America, but then gets that wine finish. So it has a bit of like that complexity, like the barrel dovetail, but without all that weight. For me, it's very, very simple. And for you at home, you don't necessarily need to find this. Sometimes you want a whiskey that's simple, that you can just enjoy a glass of, that you're not going to feel guilty about drinking. You can kind of have it while you're cooking. Maybe you're working in the kitchen, you got like the gravy going, you know the turkey's coming out in an hour, you can pour yourself a glass of this and just kind of enjoy it while you're working on it. You don't need to sit down like you might do with the redbreast and savor it. You don't need to be challenged like you would with the barrel dovetail, or even have that contrasting flavor with the smoke. Something simple is, for me, always good to have on the shelf because it's a very nice, easy to enjoy whiskey. So those are just my 5 picks. I've got the classic, the sweet, the strong, the smoky, and the simple. But let me know down in the comments below what your choices will be this Christmas. Me though, I'm gonna enjoy this little redbreast, and I'll see you next time. Sláinte.